What is going on, gunfighters? A fun episode today. Guns that need to make a comeback. Guns that need to be made again. Maybe need is not the right word, but guns that I and the insider community of what is the gunfighter tribe. We have a gunfighter tribe for the patrons. If you don't know, that's an insider chat. Now, I would consider all of you regular listeners part of the gunfighter tribe. I would consider them an inner circle, and I would consider the people in the group chat the inside of the insider circle. They're who I interact with most. And where I get a lot, honestly, of the show ideas. So you should be thankful to them too if you enjoy the show. And if you, listener, this is not your first rodeo here. If you've listened before and you like the show, you like the message, obviously it's mostly about guns, it's gunfighter life, but the prime directive is to make godly men strong and strong men godly. Good gun content that's not bought and paid for by some sponsorship, that's not a bribe, there's not a bunch of blasphemy in it, there's not a bunch of horrible moral values being pushed. If you like the content and you want to support, you want to step up and be part of that insider circle, be part of the inner tribe, consider becoming a patron. There should be a Patreon link in the show notes. Patrons get a lot of cool insider content. They get to be part of that chat if they want to be, where we talk about stuff all the time. Bible verses, theology, gun stuff, tactics, survival. If that's something you want to be a part of, or any of the other things that you get Patreon-only content, but mostly because you want to support the show, you can sign up for $1. And many people that become patrons, without me asking them or provoking them or anything, they end up giving more, just because I'm humbled that they see the value in it. So if you want to become a patron, consider, again, scrolling down, clicking that Patreon link for as little as $1. With that, since today's kind of more of a fun episode, a super quick bio. First and foremost, I am a Christian. God is number one in my life, and everything that I do in the podcast is no different. Also been blessed by God to be military veteran, combat veteran, law enforcement, private contractor. Started competition shooting over 20 years ago. Lifelong hunter, professional big game hunter, and guide. Okay, with that, let's get into guns that need to make a comeback. For the first one, how about the Browning high power? Now I know Springfield makes a high power. If it's like any of their other guns that I'm aware of, it probably doesn't work very well. I know that FN makes a high power. That one probably works okay. Not all FN guns run well, but most of them do. But why not Browning? Browning still makes guns. Browning still makes a lot of really good guns. Why not bring back the Browning high power? Especially one from our friends to the north, our Maple Leaf companions in the gun world, the Canadians. They had I believe a Canadian lightweight Browning high power with an alloy frame. For today's concealed carry, come out with that gun, lightweight. I think we're starting to see the pendulum swing, thankfully, away from everything's got to be a plastic, fantastic polymer striker-fired handgun to, wait a second, those guns from days of yore, they have a lot to offer. A more elegant weapon from a more civilized age. The metal-on-metal contact, the good hammer-fired triggers, the single-action cocked and locked. Why not come out with a Browning, made by Browning, stamped Browning, high power, lightweight gun? I know there's a Turkish copy. I don't want that gun. But if Browning came out with a lightweight, high power, I think that'd be a good gun. And I think it might do pretty well. On another handgun, how about Colt? Now, Colt still makes a lot of really good guns. They make a lot of really good 1911s. But what about the Colt Kodiak? I had the pleasure of handling one of these way back in the day when I was managing a firearms company business. One came in the door, the only one I've ever seen in person that I can remember, a Colt Kodiak. Not the Colt Anaconda, but the Colt Kodiak. Stainless steel, 44 Magnum, bear paw stamped on the side, made for backcountry, either dangerous game hunting or dangerous game defense. Just a really, really cool gun. And with Colt coming back out with the Colt Python and the Colt Anaconda and many of their other guns, why not come out with the Colt Kodiak? Look that gun up if you want to see a just beautiful, beautiful American-made beast of a handgun, a hand cannon, if you will, that Colt Kodiak. And if you're coming out with it today, let's not let tourists be the only ones that have an optics-ready revolver, right? Why not come out with that? That'd be a great hunting handgun. Why not come out with that with some kind of optics mounting system? I have to imagine with today's 3D printing and everything, with the vent rib on the top, there's gotta be a way to mount a good optic. And the recoil is going to be stiff, but there's no reciprocating slide like you beat up a normal red dot on a carry handgun. So I got to imagine that it would be okay if you could get a good solid mounting system. And I have to imagine with 3D printing and modern metallurgy, you could get some kind of mounting system. Something better than taking off the old rear sight. Just a good mounting system. But that Colt Kodiak, talk about just a really good balance of backwoods carry and hunting handgun. Just an episode on hunting with handguns if you want to go back and check that out. But the Colt Kodiak, I hope that thing makes a comeback. Since we're on Colt, how about the Colt Woodsman? Kind of legendary. If you are not new to the gun world, if you're not just, black guns, the Glock 19 and the AR-15, the Colt Woodsman is kind of a legendary, really good target 22. I wish that thing would make a comeback. I really do. What just a cool gun. What a good gun. The manufacturing techniques would likely be different, but I don't think there's a reason you couldn't come out with a Colt Woodsman again. A really good, fun, well-made, American-made Target 22 handgun. Also know, since I don't want to spend a lot of time reading you guys a bunch of different sources, I'm usually going from memory, and if I look something up like I am right now, I'm going to go to Wikipedia, not because I think it's the best, most reliable source, but because it's easy to look up, and I can compare apples to apples. Like, usually most things I want to look up are going to be on Wikipedia. The Colt Woodsman from 1915 to 1977. They have a lot of really cool models. Or I should say a lot of different really cool variants of that model, the Woodsman. Kind of a no-nonsense utilitarian, but still very good looking, especially if you like that older aesthetic 22 handgun. And if you talk about really cool old school aesthetics, kind of that 1950s nuclear cool, whatever vibe you want to talk about, how about we bring back the Whitney Wolverine? If I was doing a separate episode on some of the coolest looking handguns, the Whitney Wolverine would almost certainly be on there. They're just really cool. You think of like that 1950s, what they think the future and the space age and stuff are going to be like. This kind of epitomizes that. It's just a really cool kind of a mix of, still, even though it was designed way back in the day, futuristic and retro, and just a cool Target 22. The Whitney Wolverine. Now, as far as I'm aware, Whitney is not in business, so it'd have to get adopted by Ruger or Colt or hopefully an American-made company, Smith & Wesson. But come on, bring back that Whitney Wolverine. That thing is super cool. I don't want to get too far off on a tangent. You could do all kinds of cool modifications, but if you could come out with the Whitney Wolverine in 5.7, that just popped into my head. How cool would that be? Anyway, just a good old Whitney Wolverine in 22 long rifle. Just a really cool gun. I've got to imagine with modern metallurgy and manufacturing techniques, that would be a really cool gun to bring to market. Going to 22 rifles. One that one of the patrons brought up, and one that I actually used to own and I got rid of. Maybe I should have kept it, but again, I'm not a gun collector. I've said that before. I'm a gun fighter. But one of the really cool 22s, the Remington Speedmaster. Now, I don't know if I want them to bring it back right now. Hopefully Remington gets their stuff together and starts making good guns again. From what I've seen since they've come back, I'm not impressed. But if they get their stuff together, I would like to see them make the Remington Speedmaster. This is, I think, almost entirely unique in the world of semi-automatic 22s. And you might think, why do we need another semi-automatic 22 rifle? We got the Ruger 1022. And I'd say, yeah, it's a good option. But the Speedmaster, to the best of my knowledge, there's probably another one, but of the common ones that I'm aware of, the Remington Speedmaster is the only semi-auto where you can shoot shorts, longs, and long rifles. Two big reasons why I think that needs to make a comeback. Not only is it a good gun in toto, right, good sights, good barrel, good handling, but that short, long, and long rifle, if we have another ammo shortage, which I submit to you, we're kind of seeing the beginning of that. Hopefully it reverses of an ammo shortage at the time of this recording. A little bit of scarcity. Hopefully it doesn't get crazy, but if you're old enough to legally own a gun, you're probably old enough to remember at least two fairly legitimate ammo shortages. A lot of times when there's an ammo shortage, 22 long rifle goes bye-bye, which is sad. But you can often find 22 shorts and 22 longs. And that's cool because you can still go out and shoot and practice affordably. You're not so worried about going into your stockpile if you stop by Walmart and they have a lot of 22 longs. Because most guns don't shoot, at least most semi-autos, don't shoot 22 longs. You can buy a bunch of 22 longs and practice. Or you can buy a bunch of 22 shorts and practice. And that's really cool. That's a good practical benefit. You can still practice your riflemanship, your, fundamentals with a rifle, and not have to dig into your stockpile. Also, a secondary benefit. I talked about this recently when I talked about suppressors, but if you're talking about suppressing a 22, you can often achieve the same thing with just subsonic 22 shorts, CB caps, or Calibris. And usually, if you do that, that's not going to cycle in a semi-auto. You got to go lever action or bolt action, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I'd still say that's a more practical choice than a suppressor. But with this, you can shoot 22 shorts, which are going to be subsonic. They're going to be quiet, and it's still going to be semi-automatic. So, yeah, bring back that Speedmaster. What a cool gun. Semi-automatic, quiet. As quiet as a lot of things are going to be with a suppressor, quieter than most things are going to be with a suppressor, just because it's shooting shorts out of a long barrel. And that long barrel lets the vast majority of that gas and that pressure drop before it exits the barrel. Pretty much doing the same thing as a suppressor, but you don't need to tax stamp in the $200. So that Remington Speedmaster, I think, should come back. And if they never made it with a detachable box magazine in the past, again, come out with it today in 2023, have a version that takes Ruger 1022 mags. I'd still like the old one that feeds from a tube, but if you can, make it work with the Ruger 1022 mag. You would probably need a separate magazine for the shorts, like a smaller version or a cut down version of the same similar magazine with the 22 shorts, but it should still, there should be a way engineering wise to make that work. I'm not an engineer, but that would be really cool. The Remington Speedmaster. If you see one of those for a good price at a used gun store or a gun show, I'd say grab one of those. They're a really cool gun. If you're looking for a good kind of old school 22 to get good with iron sights and the fundamentals, that's a good one. The next one, a Patreon pick. When I posted this, again, the Insider Chat. We talk about this kind of stuff all the time. He pointed out the Marlin Model 60. It was for a long time the big rival to the Ruger 1022, and obviously the Ruger 1022 won that battle, but the Marlin Model 60 is still a great gun. And I would submit for something like small game hunting, squirrel hunting, rabbit hunting, the Marlin Model 60 is as good or better. For tactical applications, for a go-to survival carbine, I don't think it's as good. Just, again, touching on the detachable box magazines. But the Marlin Model 60 was known for being reliable, known for being accurate with that micro groove barrel that they had for a long time, being very affordable, just a rock solid carbine. And now that Ruger bought Marlin and Marlin is back, and from what I've seen juxtaposed to Remington, the new Marlin seem to be top notch. So can we get the Model 60, please. That would be awesome. That was a Patreon pick. I'm going to throw in there the Marlin Model 70, as that is the detachable box magazine version, I think, of that. And while we're at it, bring back the Papoose. If you don't know, the Papoose was one of the early kind of takedown 22 backpack guns. If you bring it back to Model 60 and Model 70, bring back the Papoose as well. Only this time give it a forearm. If, we're doing slight modifications, which I guess we are on this episode because I've mentioned several. But bring those back too. What cool little guns. Here's another one for all you practical hunters out there, all you spot and stalk hunters, all you drive hunters, all you still hunters. I know that long-range shooting with giant heavy guns and massive bipods and tripods and rangefinders is all the rage today. But I hearken for simpler times, where you hunt with a Jones hat and you learn how to walk quietly in the woods and stalk closer to your prey. And for that, there's a really good, it's not the only option, but there's a really good option. The Remington 760, the Game Master, the pump-action, full-powered rifle. A favorite, I believe, of the Benoit family, as I'm in the process of reading one of their books. Really famous for stalking. They spot and stalk hunt really, really big whitetails up in Maine. Very successful. I think that's one of their favorite go-tos, especially the patriarch of the family. And they're just really good guns. I remember that was my uncle, and my uncle was one of the people instrumental in getting me hunting as a young man. He took time when he didn't have to take me hunting, and that was his hunting rifle. Now, I grew up really poor. My hunting rifle was usually like a bolt-action, old hand-me-down 410, or a break-open single-shot 20 gauge, and that worked fine for putting a lot of meat on the table. But that pump-action 760, just kind of legendary. And I think that kind of hunting is fading, and hopefully that pendulum swings back, and hopefully we see a lot of hunters decide they want to hunt spot and stalk hunting. They want to still hunt. They want to learn how to track an animal, sneak up on it, when it's bedded down, challenge themselves. And for that kind of hunting, the 760, again, it's called the Game Master. I think it's a really good balance. You get full-powered rifle capability. You get quick follow-up shooting, as quick as I think you're going to get in practical stances, meaning standing, kneeling, without going to a semi-auto. And sadly, in a lot of places, semi-autos are not legal. They have a reputation for being very accurate. So you get a pump action, very akin to a Remington 870, but in a full-powered rifle. The most common chambering is 30-06, but they also made them in 270. My best friend, as far as I'm aware, his one and only hunting rifle, and has been for years and years, is a pump-action 760 in 270. They came in various chamberings, different models. They were popular for a long time. But that 760 Game Master, that, again, if Remington gets their stuff together, I don't want them to make it right now because it'll probably be bad and maybe kill the reputation of that gun. But that's a great gun, I think, that just needs to come back. And if we're talking about a similar kind of hunting, one that really shines in this and that has a lot of followers, a lot of people that, much like the 760, that have hunted with it, kind of understand how special it is. That's the Ruger Deerfield carbine. A lot of us know and love the Ruger 1022. What if the Ruger 1022 started hitting the gym, started juicing, started taking steroids? And I'm not for that. I'm not advocating that. It's an analogy. I don't even like aspirin. I don't take painkillers. Took baby aspirin once reluctantly because I had been shot, and they said if I didn't take it, I might die from blood clots. And I reluctantly took baby aspirin. I'm not for that kind of stuff. I drink decaf coffee, just so you know where I stand on that. But if you picture a Ruger 1022 that starts hitting the gym, taking steroids, gets super beefy, then you get the Ruger Deerfield carbine. Quintessentially, a Ruger 1022 in .44 Magnum. Now, .44 Magnum is an impressive beast of a round in a handgun. You only gain ballistics performance when you put it in a rifle. It is an awesome little woods carbine, the Ruger Deerfield carbine. I wonder why they call it the Deerfield. Perhaps I should have called it the Deep Woods Deer Carbine or something like that. It really shines in deep, thick woods, like the cypress swamps of the south, coastal barrier island areas, real thick vegetation of a Pacific Northwest rainforest, real thick vegetation. I've got a buddy who's hunting hard right now when he's part of the insider chat as well in Louisiana. I'm hunting in that kind of environment, and you offered me a Deerfield carbine that I got to shoot and zero with their load that I wanted, or one of these new modern long-range rifles. I'm going to take the Ruger Deerfield carbine. I'd even take it with iron sights over the fancy rifle with a, fancy scope and all that, because it's null and void in that kind of environment, especially if you're stalking and still hunting and things like that. A good, handy, really fast handling, semi-auto 44 Magnum carbine for anything out to, from, a jump shot out to 150 yards. It's a sledgehammer. It's a fantastic round with judicious bullet selection, because a lot of those rounds are designed for handguns. But, yeah, Ruger Deerfield carbine. Let's have it come back. If I'm picking slight modifications, let's have it come back in stainless. And let's have it in 357 Magnum, because why not? It feeds from a rotary magazine, much like Ruger 1022, so the rim is no problem in that system. Why not have it in 357 Magnum as well? And if I'm getting a little crazy, why not have it in 50 AE? Still a handgun round if it can handle the pressure. Metallurgy's gotten better. That would be a thumper. Call it the Ruger Moosefield carbine. But anyway, just a really cool gun I think that needs to make a comeback, especially in stainless steel, especially in 44 Magnum. 357 Magnum would be awesome as well. Oh, and somebody might point out, I know that the Ruger Deerfield carbine, because one of the patrons pointed out to me before, thank you, that initially came with a tubular magazine. But the one that I'm most aware of, is the one with the rotary magazine, much like a 1022. I would prefer that one to come back. I really like a flush fit rotary magazine. It's just a really cool system that works well. Speaking of rotary magazine, the OG, at least it might not be the first one, but the first mass-produced popular one that I'm aware of, is the Mannlicher Schoenhauer. That rifle needs to make a comeback. A rotary-fed magazine with that beautiful Mannlicher-style stock. If you don't know, that's the stock that goes all the way out to the end of the barrel. I just think they're some of the most beautiful rifles ever made by humans, period. Have that thing come back out. It originally came out in a 6.5 by 50, gotta look it up on Wikipedia, 6.5 by 54. I think be confused with the 6.5 by 55 Sweet. But a 6.5, full powered rifle cartridge like that, if you had it come out today, you'd probably have it come out in 6.5 Creedmoor. Not a super long range gun, a Mannlicher style stock, rotary magazine, beautifully made. Have that Mannlicher Schoenhauer come back. If you don't know what that gun looks like, they're just beautiful guns, especially like the sporterized full-length stock to the end, rotary magazine. By all accounts, a really good gun. And back when they were cheap and sporterization was a thing, probably one of the best guns in my opinion to sporterize for hunting. It was adopted by the Greeks, without getting too much off into the history, but, have that thing come back. Whoever owns that name. Have like Steyr or one of the good European manufacturers make it, or even have an American make it. Kind of like the polymer striker-fired handgun world. There is a plethora of polymer striker-fired handguns. It's almost analysis by paralysis when you start looking at them. There's so many. And it's kind of like that in the bolt-action hunting world. You get a bolt-action, dirt cheap, polymer stock, sub-MOA, optics only, no iron sights, rifle. And there's a ton of them. There's a ton of budget ones. How about a really good, old school, with iron sights, with the ability to mount an optic, rotary magazine, wood, Mannlicher stock, handy carbine? That would be a really cool thing to see on the market. That wasn't even initially on the list. I was thinking about the Rotary Magazine thing, and that's just a really cool rifle. That'd be a really cool one to have come back. On the bolt-action hunting rifles, Ruger makes some good ones. They still make some good ones. The Ruger American, if we're talking about that cheap polymer stock, kind of modern design, the Ruger American is very successful and by all accounts a good rifle. There's nothing wrong with it. They still make the Ruger Hawkeye, which is kind of their development of the M77, but I would really like to have them come back out with the old Ruger M77 canoe paddle, often called a canoe paddle or Zytel stock. Just kind of legendary for their rugged, good hunting, all-weather capability. Just a stainless steel canoe paddle, utilitarian, controlled round feed, just a beefy rifle. I would love to have them come out with like a retro version of that. Canoe paddle, Zytel stock. I can't imagine that those stocks are so expensive that you couldn't come out with one again. Some people think they're kind of ugly. I think they're really cool. Come out with one again. Please come out with it with iron sights. I think some of the models came with iron sights, some didn't. I think they even made a version, it's kind of their all-weather version, the canoe paddle stock stainless steel. I think they came out with one in 7.62 by 39. That's pretty cool. Bring them all back. Bring back, unless it's some weird obscure caliber, bring back the 7.62 by 39 canoe paddle stock. Bring back the 7 Rem Mag, the 30-06. That'd be a really cool thing to see. Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about shotguns. Since we just talked about a Ruger, let's talk about another. Ruger, as far as I'm aware, made the only over and under stainless steel. And I like stainless steel. The Ruger Red Label in stainless steel. Could we bring that back? Is that possible? I don't know. I don't think that Ruger now makes any over and unders. Maybe they don't have the machinery or anything anymore. So maybe this is a long shot, but that Ruger Red Label, kind of their all-weather canoe paddle, but it's not a canoe paddle, but they're kind of all-weather utilitarian rugged stainless steel over and under shotgun. If you want the elegance and the handling of an over and under shotgun, and by all accounts I think the Ruger Red Labels were really good, but you want to hunt hard with it. You don't want maybe a finely blued over and under. Maybe you're not just hunting, quail over dogs in a nice field with your tweed jacket. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. But what if you're hunting, sooty grouse in a rainforest, like I was just doing up in Alaska? What if you're doing that? A stainless steel over and under, and you don't want to go with a pump or something. You want the handling of an over and under, but you want a little bit more rugged. That Ruger Red Label in stainless steel, that'd be nice. Also talking about shotguns, let's move back to the tactical. The Browning A5. You might think, well, that's a hunting shotgun. Well, many of them were, but there was the Browning Auto 8, commonly referred to as the Auto 8. I don't know if that was its actual designation, but there were some. I'm not super familiar with the history, and I'm not going to do months of research on it, but often referred to as an Auto 8. I don't know if they still called it an Auto 5 with 8-round capacity, and people just called it the Auto 8, but the Browning Auto 8, 8-round capacity, tactical version of the Auto 5. I think maybe the Rhodesians use them, and I think maybe some CONUS here in America police agencies may have had them, but the Browning Auto, the first semi-auto shotgun by John Moses Browning, the same one that gave us the 1911 and the M2 50 caliber machine gun, also I think invented the semi-auto shotgun. The Auto 8 would be a really cool shotgun to see come back. A tactical version, you could do a retro version, much like Mossberg does the Retro 590 with the wood stock and the corncob handle and stuff. Do a similar idea with that, and you could make like a modern version of the Auto 8. The receiver drilled and tapped for an optic with good ghost ring iron sights, because I think the original ones just came with a bead. I could be wrong, but with good iron sights, either rifle sights or I actually prefer rifle sights to ghost rings, but ghost rings are more popular. But either one, just a better sighting option, and a drilled and tapped receiver. but a Browning Auto 8, that would be really cool. Probably should have mentioned this when I talked about the Colt Kodiak, but if you want something like that, but you don't want a revolver, how about the Wildy Survivor? The Wildy Survivor. If you're not familiar, it's more of an obscure gun. This is kind of along that same line. You want a backcountry, dangerous game, sidearm, and or hunting gun. The Wildy Survivor. Now this is for kind of an oddball chambering, the .45 Winchester Magnum, but a good round. Very ballistically capable for sure. Also the .475 Wildy Magnum. And wait, I just Googled it to look it up to get some, because I'm only semi-familiar with them. It says U.S. Firearms. Survivor handgun now available. Could it be that this gun... It says, we are pleased to announce the release of the new and improved Survivor semi-automatic pistol. We are currently offering in .475 Wildy Magnum and .45 Winchester Magnum. In 8-inch and 10-inch and 12-inch barrels. I guess technically it's not on the list anymore if it's available. I had no idea. If you're looking for a very unique, assuming, again, you know my rule about things, make sure they're out for 3 years. Hopefully this one is financially viable enough that it's around for 3 years. You just want one for fun and to try and hunt with it, that's fine. If it's for any kind of defense, including dangerous game defense, I would say make sure it's out and proven and reliable for a couple of years before you trust your life to it. That's my general rule. I don't want to differ from that here. If you just want to try to hunt with it or shoot it, what a cool gun. If you kind of look at it and you take I think if you take a 1911 and you take, let's say, the Whitney Wolverine, that retro future kind of aesthetic, and mate them together, almost like cut it in half and welded them together, and you put it in a big beefy Magnum cartridge, that you're kind of getting close to what I would describe as the Wildy Survivor. Just a cool gun. If that's what you're looking for, it's a cool gun, and it's cool to see, because I was hoping they would make a comeback, and it looks like they are. The thing that really might hurt it is both those cartridges are pretty scarce. But if you're getting a gun like this, you're probably not getting it to run, El Presidentes with it. If it is reliable and a good gun, I am so happy to see it come back. That is really cool. I'm not familiar with that company. I don't think, was aware of them or heard of them until I looked it up. But that's a really cool gun. The Wildy Survivor. That is really cool. And on the handguns and the 1911 kind of style guns, if you listen for any length of time, you'll know that I'm a big fan of the STI, now Staccato. I am blessed to own 2 of those. I carried those as a professional gunfighter, the commander of a tactical team to stop active shooters. That was my go-to sidearm. That was my go-to handgun. An STI 2011. I really, really like them. Now they're Staccato, and they've kind of streamlined. I'm not criticizing them. The new Staccatos are very good guns, but they got rid of a lot of their older models. Now that they seem to be doing well, hopefully financially, I'd like to see them bring back a couple of the old STI models. The STI Perfect 10, if you're not familiar, a 10mm double stack 1911. Just a fantastic gun. If you want a crossover kind of hunting, high capacity, carry, duty kind of gun in 10mm, that STI Perfect 10. That's a cool option. Also, they made one back in days of yore that I always admired, but I never got. But it was called the STI Executive. It was kind of I don't remember if it was stainless or that chrome nickel finish, but it was gorgeous. It was mostly like white gray, and it had like ivory colored, double stack grip module. The STI Executive, if you look that up, just a beautiful, beautiful gun. I would love to see that gun come back. And my all-time favorite, they don't make it anymore, the Marauder. That is my preeminent go-to fighting STI. the STI Marauder. I think it was the best balance. Now, it was out a while ago, so it wasn't optics ready. If they come back out with it, obviously in 2023, make it optics ready. But the STI Marauder, they make one that's close now, but I just think that STI Marauder was a really, really good balance of being a good, practical, kind of no-nonsense, everything you need, nothing you don't, full-size fighting handgun, which is why I settled on it for my carry gun when I was the commander of a tactical team. It's a phenomenal gun, the STI Marauder. I'd like to see those models come back. Since we've kind of been talking about 1911 adjacent guns, how about the Hudson H9? Now, this is kind of a sad story. A small family started company came out with this, what I think is a really good idea for a handgun, kind of taking the best features, or some of the best features, of a 1911, which is an awesome gun, and the more modern and those much more common polymer striker-fired handguns, and kind of making those come together in a cool way. And they were a hot thing for a while, for just a short time, and they went out of business. I think, I'm not exactly sure, but I think a big part of that was price point. They were expensive, and they were from a very small company, Hudson H9. But I don't think inherently there was anything bad about that design. In fact, I think it had a lot of teeth. I think it could go somewhere. And if there's a company that stands out to me that makes really good guns really affordably for the blue-collar working man in America, it's probably Ruger. Ruger makes really good American-made guns affordably that tend to be pretty good and work well, and they use a lot of modern manufacturing techniques and mass production to do so. I think if you took that Hudson H9, and they could still even call it in honor of the Hudson family who came up with it, even if they still call it the Hudson H9, but made by Ruger, and they could mass produce it, maybe as Ruger often did with many models like the M14 to the Mini 14 or the 1911, and use some, let's say, more affordable manufacturing techniques like metal injection molding, pressure castings, things like that. And I'm not exactly sure, but they do a really good job at looking at how can we make this thing still good, but more affordable. They're good at that. They did a similar thing with the pre-64 Winchester Model 70 in that Ruger M77 that we talked about. Could they do that with the Hudson H9? Talk about a winner. I think if you could come out with that, but at a price that wasn't several times the price of a Glock, I think unlike a lot of guns that are expensive because they're expensive to make, like a Lago Alien or something like that, I think they were expensive mostly because they were from a very small boutique company trying to get their feet off the ground and recoup manufacturing costs. If that gun could come out from a company like Ruger that could produce it at an affordable price point, I think it could be a winner. I think it could be a really, really cool gun. It was a cool gun. I just think the price point kind of knocked it out of the running. And I think, to be fair, like many new guns that come out, it had a few teething issues, but nothing glaringly obvious that said, hey, this is a bad gun. I mean, a lot of really popular guns today had teething issues, like the 320. They've become extremely popular once you get those worked out. That's one of the big reasons I say stay away from the new gun when it first comes out. Let it be proven. And sadly, the Hudson H9 didn't make it, but I think maybe it should make a comeback with a bigger company standing behind it. Okay, with that, there were a few more Patreon picks. We mentioned the Marlin Model 60. Also brought up the H&R Handy Rifle, and I should give credit, Pat came up with all three of these. He'll know who he is. But the H&R Handy Rifle, yes, really, really good rifles. I talked about that break-open single-shot 20 gauge that I hunted with as a boy, and they made the break-open single-shot shotguns, but they also made a lot of break-open single-shot rifles. Just affordable working man's blue-collar break-open single-shot rifles. They even made what I consider a really, really cool combo pack of, I believe it was a 20 gauge, a 243, and a 22 long rifle where you could interchange the barrels. And if you want to just kind of a go-to, cover most bases really affordably, Like you have your go-to end of the world apocalypse and you want it to be a fighting rifle, but you also want to be able to take game and hunt and shoot affordably, or maybe arm somebody else, or for youth hunting, or for all-around hunting. You got a shotgun, you got a rimfire, you got a good centerfire rifle, deer caliber, and they made many other calibers. I don't even want to look up how many they made. It'd probably be easier to name off cartridges they didn't chamber for. Like they probably never chambered in a 9.3 by 62. But many, many common and even less common calibers they chambered for. And I think that was one of the really cool things about the H&R Handy rifle. If you were like, hey, I want to try 35 Whelen, but I don't want to go out and drop thousands of dollars on a custom-made 35 Whelen bolt gun, Mauser conversion, whatever, you get an H&R Handy rifle. Get into the world of 35 Whelen or many other cartridges. The H&R Handy rifle, that would be really cool to see it come back. And especially for guys that like to tinker and hand load especially and try out different stuff in different calibers, they're really, really cool for that. You just want to kind of mess around with gunsmithing and accurizing. You know, how accurate can I make this super cheap handy rifle? There's like the old rubber washer trick that I remember with like kind of free-floating the semi-free-floating the forend and all kinds of things you could do to the old H&R Handy rifle. Again, if you just wanted to try a different caliber or try some gunsmithing like turning a 22 Hornet into a 22K Hornet, or, you know, a 35 Whelen into a 35 Whelen Ackley improved or something like that. You know, if you mess up the barrel, you're not out thousands of dollars. You're out a fairly inexpensive barrel. One of the things back then, you weren't supposed to, I think, be able to just interchange the barrels. You had to send it to the factory and they would fit the barrel. I think because Thompson Center could do it with the Contender and things like that. With today, with the better manufacturing techniques, you probably could get pre-fit barrels where they would just interchange. I'm not sure about that, but that would be a big plus if when it came back out, you could just order different barrels. You didn't have to send your gun into the factory and get it fit. But the H&R Handy rifle, pointed out by a patron, thanks Pat, it would be cool to see that come back, especially at a very affordable price point. The last one, and this is also from Pat, and it's a really good one, the Nylon 66. I think Pat has a thing for affordable, like, budget stuff. I know Pat. I've met him in person, one of the patrons I had a pleasure to meet in my journeys across the country, and he has kind of a thing for the budget guns. Nothing wrong with that, as long as they work. The Nylon 66 kind of epitomizes that. It was designed to be a really cheap, affordable 22 rifle that also happened to just really, really be a good 22. Lightweight, easy maintenance, super reliable. I think they look really cool. The Nylon 66. Yeah, could we bring that back? A lot of Remingtons on this list. I would really like to see Remington again get their stuff together, please. When they remade the 870, I rushed out and I was like, I have a lot of history with the 870. Surely, if this is like one of their flagship things they're coming back out with, it'll be good. And mine did not run at all. In fact, I went and bought from an old gun store, in like a bin of old stuff. I bought an old 870 barrel because the new one was just bad. And that's where the chamber is. You know, I hope they get their stuff together. And if they do, I would really like to see them make a lot of these really good old guns. The Nylon 66, the Speedmaster, the Game Master, you know, the 760, and any of the other guns on the list. You know, how cool would it be to have some of these guns come back? I would really like to see that. Hopefully you would too. And even if they don't come back, again, I'm not a gun collector, but I know many of you probably are. Just good ideas of things that you want to keep your eye out for if you're looking to have a gun collection or have guns as an investment. I think because a lot of people know that these were good guns. If you find one at a decent price, they may be a good, solid investment, especially with inflation the way that it is now. But just some thoughts on guns that I would like to see come back. A more fun episode. Again, if you enjoy this, if you enjoy the content, and if you want to step up and support and even be a more interactive part of the tribe, not that you have to be, but consider becoming a patron. Consider becoming a patron. You like those awesome effects there? Don't worry, I do this for a living. Consider becoming a patron. Honestly, it would be a big help and a blessing to me. This is how you guys get the content that you get. If you don't know, when I first started this, I was doing a couple episodes a year. I was still professionally gunfighting. When I started this, I was private contracting. Then I was the commander of a tactical team. And then I was a professional big game hunter and guide. And as you might imagine, I didn't have a lot of time to get a lot of content out. You maybe got a couple episodes a year. If you enjoy the amount of content and the quality of content, not just recording it on my phone when I'm driving to and from work or the range or an operation, actually sitting down with a computer and a microphone and giving you the content, if you appreciate that and you want to support, again, please consider becoming a patron. Also, just want to give once. You don't want to deal with Patreon. You don't want to be part of the insider tribe or chat or get insider content. You just want to support. There's also a Venmo link in most episodes. Anyway, enough about that. The tactical tip of the day. Backwoods hunting, hiking tip. I don't know about other phones, but if you have an iPhone, you likely have a compass app. That's a really accurate compass. More accurate than a lot of really expensive compasses. Now, you should always have a backup compass because I don't like to trust my life to anything that takes batteries. That includes the iPhone. You should have a backup compass. However, if you have the iPhone and you're using it anyway, if you're hiking, technique you learn for land navigation, whatever you're doing, especially in the military, you might learn dead reckoning, a survival technique. The way the iPhone can assist with this, pull up your compass app, choose your azimuth, take a screenshot. If you know you're hiking to this mountain peak, and that mountain peak is, I'm just picking 271 degrees. You take a screenshot of that. If you get to that point and you change your azimuth, now I'm heading towards the bend in this river, the horseshoe bend in this river. That is now at 35 degrees. You take a screenshot of that. Now, if you need to find your way back, you can shoot a back azimuth. You just either add or subtract 180 degrees. Pretty obvious which one to do because you have to stay within 360 degrees. But you do your back azimuth from that point to the previous point and then to your starting point. You can use that. You can leverage that technology on your iPhone. Again, the iPhone has a compass on it. Maybe put it on your home screen if you're going out hiking or hunting or fishing or whatever in the backcountry. Use this app many times in the past. Use it in Alaska recently. With just that in the screenshot, you don't forget. You think, oh, I'll remember that, and you get excited and something happens, and 6 hours later you forgot what the exact azimuth was. And over time that adds up. And you end up way in a different place than where you started. Maybe okay, maybe not a big deal. Maybe you just got to do a little bit more hiking. Maybe you get somewhere really dangerous. So, again, use, if you can, even if it's a backup, use the compass app on your iPhone. Put it on the main screen, and then when you do your dead reckoning and choose an azimuth, take a screenshot of it. It's a really good backup, even if you have a GPS or whatever. It's a really good backup thing to have. Take a screenshot of that azimuth, and even use your little, consider this a tactical tip on top of a tactical tip, even use your little thing on your camera that I think just comes on all the cameras, that you can draw on there, and you can write what the point was and do some extra stuff on there. But just what I already mentioned is a really good thing to have as a backup so you don't get lost. With that, your tactical verse of the day. Hopefully what you've been waiting for most. And maybe even a little pocket sermon. You see, in the Marine Corps, when we had downtime, if you had like a good leader or commander, a lot of times they would say, do a hip pocket class, meaning like something you had written in a notebook that you could teach on, kind of like a tactical tip on urban warfare or vehicle maintenance. Who knows what the topic might be, but you could become better, not just waste time. Hopefully this tactical verse of the day, maybe a hip pocket sermon, will be a blessing. He who loves silver will not be satisfied with silver, nor he who loves abundance with increase. This also is vanity. Comes as no surprise that I like guns. But as Jesus said, take heed and keep yourself from all covetousness. For a man's life consists not in the abundance of things which he possesseth. Now that's the words of Jesus. The initial verse I quoted was from Ecclesiastes. Obviously, Jesus was the wisest man that ever lived. Right behind him was Solomon, who wrote Ecclesiastes. Obviously, the truth in this is that naked you came into this world and naked you leave it. I like guns. I like having nice guns. I like using nice guns. That's not where the abundance of life lies. Your relationship with the creator and maker of the universe. Our lives are as a vapor. Vanity, vanity. It's all passing away. Don't lose sight of what's really important. The Almighty God, creator of the universe. Serving him. Being in a relationship with him. All the commandments summed up. Loving God and loving your neighbor. When Jesus is asked the first of the commandments. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. This is the first commandment, and the second like it is this. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these. Beware of covetousness. And I'll reread the tactical verse of the day. He who loves silver will not be satisfied with silver, nor he who loves abundance with increase. This also is vanity. Thanks for listening, and have a blessed day.